This week is the Service Manager's Guide to Unleashing AI for Your Service Desk. We're going to talk about change management with Service AI, which sounds like a really boring topic, but I promise you it's not, because I think it's one of the most important topics we talk about. As we all know, change is hard. Today's session is all about getting over that change. And to help us talk through that, I invited Tom on the call. Tom, welcome. Tom joins us from NetTeam TX. Tom posted an amazing blog post recently about his journey with Thread and using AI in the help desk. It's definitely worth a read. Really enjoyed it myself. Thanks, Tom, for writing it. A lot of insights. But Tom has a great meme in that blog post. If you click through it, change is so scary, but it's really not. Change is not scary, you guys. And that's what I want to talk about today. Would love to know just a little bit, if you don't mind briefly introducing yourself to everyone here, where you work, what your role is, and what drew you to Thread and what gets you most excited about Thread.
So my name's Tom. I'm one of the senior technicians at NetTeam. It's an MSP based in the UK that looks after the hospitality industry. But what we've started leaning towards is making things the sort of the customer end user experience better, because in the past it's just been email in, tell us your issue, and then there's a lot of backing and forth in, and you never really sort of get the happy end user, if you're following. It's a very long-winded task if it's a short issue.
Yeah, I hear you. What drew you guys to Thread?
It was just the way the ease that it integrated, because it already had our toolbox and it worked out of the box with everything. So within, I think, half an hour of being given access to Thread, we signed in with the APIs that we used, got it all sorted with single sign-on, and we were away in the testing phase a lot quicker than what was anticipated, because I'm quite keen on the technology. So when we get given a new toy, I immediately want to sort of jump onto it and start playing with it and learn the ins and out. And my manager sat me down and said, "We're getting this. We're going to use it like this, but we need to take our time with it." And the actual setup process is really straightforward and really easy. I then got a whipping off my manager because he said, "You needed to take your time with it." And I was like, "Look, you just have to do this. It's not that difficult."
Yeah,
But
I
I
hear
think it's
you.
a really
Change is
good
scary,
product to
right?
work with. Absolutely. We kind of expected, when we told our end users, "Look, you now speak to a robot to tell us your problems." We expected everybody to go, "Oh, absolutely not. How dare you? If we've got an issue that works, a method, we just call in and give you grief." Because like, even when you speak to them on the phone, they're
Hmm.
not giving you all the right information, or it's gone to the overflow line and they all deal in sales. And so they'll be telling them about one issue and they'll be documenting another issue. And it was just an absolute sort of terrified. But the end users were really on board for it. The problem was the actual help desk. They were quite
Hmm.
happy to sit there and stress. So we've had to sort of drip feed them,
Hmm.
which seemed to have
Hmm.
worked really, really well. So rather than just unleashing Thread on them and saying, "Look, you now do this," we turned it on in stages and sort of, "Look, isn't this really good? Isn't this really helpful?" And then now everything's turned on and we're in a bit of a hybrid state. So we use Autotask for the tickets, but the customer communication and the time documentation, that's all done with the Autotask add-in. And it's now, I think it stopped working the other day, and two of my technicians started getting nervous. And I was like, "You
Uh-oh.
can still work," but people have sort of, we've found that if you lead people into it and sort of give it them bit by bit rather than turning it all on at once, it was just received so much better. And I think a week after the week just gone is when it was turned on for all clients. And we expected just maybe a handful of tickets to come through of the tech busybodies, the ones that had spot the change in teams. And no, absolutely everybody's just jumped on it. telling it all the problems, and it's got to the point now where it's solving the problems without it even assigning it to a technician.
That's
So I've
awesome.
got a meeting next week with all of the senior management and go, ta-da!
Well, that's an awesome feeling when you see. I think like every time we see a partner share like a zero touch resolution ticket with us, we
Yeah,
all get excited and post it in our Slack, and everyone gives it huge thumbs ups and hearts and all the emojis. One quick question I have for you is in this whole rollout process, where did you start first? Did you start on convincing your internal team or trying to convince your customers? It sounds like your customers were really on board with it. Where did you actually start?
well, the customers didn't really have a choice,
Hmm.
unfortunately. We sort of went to them and said, NetTeam is now developing. We're becoming much more future facing. This is how you will now log tickets. It wasn't, this is now available. We've kind of been a bit heavy handed with them. And so this
Hmm.
is the way things are now. And they seemed quite receptive to that. They were like, yeah, all right, that's fine, whatever. But the technicians who knew better, they were the ones that had to be told, you can use this, please use this.
Hmm.
And where I sit in the office, I sit right in the middle of the help desk. So I can see everybody else and I can see when they're not using it.
And how'd you deal with on the technician side? How'd you get them all on board with it? I know you said bit by bit. Like, did you have a strategy there that was successful?
I think it was just explaining to them what it does, how it does it, and why it's a good thing to use. So the
Mhm.
one that seems to have got the most sort of popularity is on TimePad. You can get it to write your time entry and all the things that you've done, and that just blew everybody's head off when I showed them, like, look, you just click this button, and it'll write everything that you've done. And that is, I think, what sold it to the help desk at least, is the fact that
What
you've then got,
And, if I may, Steve, I love that you brought that up, Tom, because, we almost feel like it's harder to convince the service desk sometimes of the change than it is the customers, because the customers
yeah,
really what they just want faster service ultimately. And so you're absolutely right. TimePad was supposed to be the carrot for the technicians to convince them this
yeah,
is how much your life can improve if you start to adopt AI. But that's a great
yeah.
insight. We've heard that a lot. The service desk either buying in, at least the right folks. And I'm curious, was there a particular group of your service desk that bought in first versus second?
Uh, so the first liners were the ones that we sort of tried it on. We didn't just turn it on for everybody on the help desk. So this is going to be used primarily by first line and that sort of customer interaction, the initial one. So yeah, second line and third line can use it, but they weren't as bothered. So I thought we might as well start at the bottom, train all the first liners on how to use it properly, how to understand it, and basically how to use it the way that I want them to use it. And then we can gradually start training more and more people, because it's going to get to the point where the customer's expecting to be reached on Teams. And I'm hoping one day a second line engineer will call the technician and go, why are you calling me? You can just send me a message on Teams. And then that's the end of that.
I love it. What's changed in your workflow now that AI was introduced?
One of the really, really annoying things, and I don't know whether this is just me being difficult, but the tickets, the actual title, it never related to what the actual issue was. So then going and searching for it 3 months later was an absolute nightmare. Whereas one of the AIs, it makes the ticket title for you. And so now when you look down all our ticket queues, they're all really nicely worded and you can tell at a glance exactly what the issue is there.
That's awesome to hear. If any of you have any questions for Tom, like definitely post them in the chat. Would love to hear them. While we're waiting for that, Tom, do you have any advice you give an MSP that's starting out with Thread this quarter and doesn't want to overcomplicate things?
So not to, what I would say is the way that we first turned it on was for emails only. So it's not like we just said, here you could speak with the technician directly. The end user wasn't told immediately about this, but we left it on. So the tickets were being evaluated, the priorities and the categories and subcategories were being set properly. And it was gradually, this is what a proper ticket looks like.
That's awesome. Thomas is asking if there's any chance you could describe your workflow. I assume you mean his service delivery workflow today.
Well, which one?
Well, maybe walk you through, like, what does that look like with Thread? Like, what happens when a ticket comes in, and are you guys dispatching it? Are you routing it? Is a tech pulling it in? And how is Thread helping you in that process?
So what's happening is, say the customer uses an email, that will just land straight into the first line unassigned, and then it will immediately get handed out to Rocket Ship, which is like an automated allocation tool used for Autotask, and everyone hates it. It uses so many API calls and it just murders everything. But if they use Teams, and this is one of the ways that we were kind of advertising it to customers, so like, look, you'll be able to speak to someone a lot quicker. We said, oh, we use Teams, and then what we set Thread to do is the ticket now sits in first line unassigned, but it doesn't get handed out. It sits in being assessed by AI. So the end user knows, hold up, I'm not actually speaking with someone called bot here. I'm speaking with the robot. And then after Thread it's got all the information it needs that's going to help the technician, it's then at that point it gets assigned out. The customers then handed out all of the useless information that is like pulling teeth on some days. And then the technician gets a summary of what the customer wants. They can then just go back on Teams in a matter of seconds and go, I've added you to this email group now. Thank you very much. Ticket closed.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing. And Tom, thank you for joining us on AI Service Unleashed. As always, really appreciate your partnership.